San Antonio Spurs are a legit title contender.
Undefeated in February. For the third time ever in the San Antonio Spurs franchise history, they will finish a month without a loss. The last time this happened, 2013-2014 Spurs. Result, championship. But this ain't the 2013-2014 Spurs. In fact, they're nowhere near that dynasty. Wemby's Spurs are different, and that might be a problem. The Spurs dynasty. In the 2019-2020 lockdown season, for the first time in 22 seasons, Greg Popovich, the winningest coach of all time, missed the playoffs. Just the second season after losing their franchise Big Three. It's clear, it's time for a rebuild. But there's one problem. In 2 decades, the Spurs never went into rebuild mode. They are always accustomed to winning. The last time they went into rebuild mode lasted for only 1 season, when their face of the franchise in the 90s, David Robinson, suffered both back and foot injuries in the 96-97 season. But never did the Spurs know that this injury would set them up for the next 2 decades, as they won the lottery and landed the first overall pick in the 1997 NBA draft. Who did they pick? The 6'11" power forward from Wake University, Tim Duncan. And just like that, Spurs rebuild mode in the late 90s lasted for 1 season. Fast forward to the early 2020s and history is repeating itself. But is history really leaning towards a dynasty or a massive failure? The rebuild. In June 2023, basketball history was about to turn upside down, as the greatest prospect since LeBron James in 2003 was up for grabs. A freakish 7'4" monster with an 8-foot wingspan that can shoot, distribute, and surely defend. The French phenom, Victor Wembanyama, a 1 in a million prospect. And just like in 1997, the Spurs have literally won the lottery, as they landed once again the first overall pick of the draft. Wembanyama entered the league with unprecedented expectations. He was labeled generational before he played a single NBA minute. The pressure was immense, but so was the opportunity. For the first time since Duncan's prime, the Spurs had a player who could fundamentally alter the trajectory of the franchise. And oh boy, when the league knew that Wemby was going to one of the greatest franchises in the league, they knew they were in trouble. Why? Because the San Antonio Spurs possessed one vital weapon that very few franchises in the league have. Miami, Golden State, Oklahoma, Toronto, San Antonio. Can you tell what these teams have in common? Player development. These teams maximize NBA talent like no other teams in the league. Look at the history of the Spurs. They maximized the career of Tim Duncan, literally milked until the last drop. They reached Tim's maximum ceiling by building an entire team and an entire system around their superstar, forming the Big Three around the 28th overall pick, Tony Parker, and the 57th overall pick, Manu Ginobili. That's 3 homegrown, Hall of Fame-worthy NBA players. And did we mention Kawhi Leonard, the Claw? The kid who was seen just to be a defender became a prolific 3-level scorer. Now imagine what this organization can do with a prospect of a lifetime. A 7'4" monster who can literally do anything, can shoot anywhere and can chuck up one-legged threes, butter in the mid-range, and be unstoppable in the post. And just like what they did in the past, they surrounded their superstar with scrappy blue-collar players that can absolutely go to war just to win a chip. Drafting versatile guard Stephon Castle, who can guard the best guards in the league and who can score at will, with playmaking on par with most of the starting point guards in the league. And yeah, he's not asking to be a superstar. He's a defensive connector that just wants to win. Guys like Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson, who provide that much-needed energy and scoring punch that can absolutely terrorize both the offense and defense. Underrated guys like Julian Champagnie and Trey Jones, the perfect role players who can stretch the floor and give up their body for 50-50 loose balls. And did we mention their newest addition? One of the quickest point guards since John Wall, De'Aaron Fox, who's hungry and has a lot to prove with his abysmal stint with the Kings. This guy was averaging 26 and 6 just a year ago, and he's not even playing like his former self. Entering the new era. The Spurs had everything going right for them in the past couple of years. Everything but one. The living legend, the NBA Hall of Famer, and their franchise coach, Greg Popovich, stepped down from coaching after almost 2 decades of holding the helm for the Spurs. Pop was integral to the Spurs' success, a brilliant coach who brought out the best out of his players. He will go down in history as the coach who has the most wins in his career, with 1,390 wins, ahead of Don Nelson. Pop left a massive hole in the Spurs organization, and there's one man brave enough to try and fill that void: Mitch Johnson. The funny thing was, Mitch Johnson was also homegrown. Johnson had spent nearly a decade in the Spurs system and is widely credited with maintaining San Antonio's developmental culture, while adapting to a new era centered around young stars and analytics-driven strategy. Even developing coaches was Spurs' specialty. Johnson adapted most of Pop's system but added his own twist, a modern twist that made San Antonio a true contender in the West in a span of a year. But how did Johnson really mix up the Spurs system? First, their guard play has fundamentally changed the offensive burden. With stronger perimeter creation and downhill pressure, Victor Wembanyama no longer has to operate as the primary on-ball engine every possession. That has preserved his energy for what makes him most dangerous: defense. Offensively, the system isn't relying on historic scoring streaks from one player. Instead, it's consistently good production from multiple contributors. That balance has eliminated their earlier momentum team tendencies, where highs were extreme but consistency lagged. The Spurs allow 10.6 fewer points per 100 possessions with him on the court versus off. They're also elite on the glass, posting a total rebounding rate above 51%, anchored by Wembanyama's dominance. They also force opponents into mid-range attempts, protecting both the rim and the three-point line. And coach Mitch Johnson does not want to rely solely on Wemby. In their 11-game winning streak, no player in the Spurs has averaged over 30 minutes per game. This young Spurs squad is maximizing what they call .5 basketball. Within a half second of getting the ball, you need to be shooting it, passing it, or driving it, putting perpetual pressure on the defense in the never-ending battle to turn a good shot into a great one. The hurdles. These points sure make the Spurs look like they're entering their dynasty era. Three-peats and multiple Wemby MVPs. They're near. They're knocking on the doorstep of greatness, but not yet. There are a couple of hurdles they need to cross that the mainstream media won't tell you. These boys are inconsistent. Mitch loves to pair Wemby with a 3-guard lineup: Castle, Harper, and Fox. Yeah, sure, these guards can score inside the paint and make their own shots. But with Wemby inside, they need to be maximizing Wemby's gravity. How? By making shots beyond the arc. And they were horrible. Fox, 35%. Castle, 29%. And the Rook, Harper, 25%. When it comes to the playoffs, where every shot matters, they need to make those. And even with how good Wemby is this season, there were times that this Spurs squad still didn't use Wemby as if he's a 7'4" freak of nature. Still minimal to zero lob passes in the paint, sometimes relying on Wemby to create his own shot. Why? Because none of these Spurs guards are even near elite passers. They were not playmakers. The best playmaker on this Spurs squad is De'Aaron Fox, who has been the first option scorer for the Sacramento Kings in his entire career. And of course, the other main concern throughout Wemby's career is injuries. But if in the next 4 or 5 years, with continuous maturity, improving passing and shooting, and Wemby being healthy, it's scary for the entire league. The Spurs have vanquished the defending champions, OKC, 4 times out of 5 this season. And it'll be apparent if the Spurs' inexperience in the playoffs will play a huge deciding factor come April. When Victor Wembanyama doesn't have to be everything anymore, that might be the most dangerous thing about these young Spurs. They aren't waiting for the future, they're building a new era, in real time. And if this is what they look like before they've fully arrived, the league is in trouble.